Dear brothers and sisters, hello and welcome to Khustup Media. I am Hayastan, and I am glad to initiate our first interview in English. And I could even say that I'm happy because my first guest who will make this interview in English is my friend Micah. Thank you so much, Micah, for your presence here.
Thank you, Salko. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm not very used to talking English, but it will be a good exercise for me. Mika-jan, can you tell us what were you doing before coming to Armenia? Because our guest should know that you were used to live in the US and you were born there, and you're living in Armenia for almost more than 2 years, or approximately 2 years. Let's start talking about what you were doing in the US and why you have decided to come to Armenia.
I was raised in the US all my life, up until 2 years ago, as you said. I grew up not very Armenian, but also not very American. I was always told I was Armenian. I was not told anything else. On top of my Greek, German, Austrian background, I was always told I was Armenian because of our last name. I joined US military in the Marine Corps, and I served for a couple years and then got out because COVID time happened, which is a different story entirely. It was the reserves, but I had regular jobs, retail. My last job was real job was welding, like metallurgy, making machines for meat processing, like big factories, that sort of thing. Always been creative, which has led to what I do now.
Just to precise, how old are you, and in which state you were used to live in the US?
I was from Michigan.
Yeah, and you are 20. How old are you?
26 now.
26. Great. So yeah, just sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 26 now, which is crazy. Hard to think. Time goes by fast. I've spent maybe total of closer to 3 years in Armenia, but it's been officially 2 years that I've been here now. But again, going back, I always knew that I was Armenian, and I can honestly say that I always had the feeling or fire in my heart, so to speak, which I believe I got from my grandpa. And probably when I turned 14 years of age, I really wanted to come to Armenia to actually stay. I never thought about just visiting right off the bat. It was always to stay. Time went on, that sort of dream fell off again, and then the second Artsakh war, or technically third, you could say, the Artsakh war in 2020 started, and I remember waking up one morning and realized that I had to do something. It was a strange event, very interesting, but that's when I woke up, so to say, and actually chose to come.
Yeah, because you are Armenian from your father's side, yeah, right? Great.
My mom is American.
Great. And so you arrived in Armenia, that was in 2022, maybe, yes? Or just before? No?
The very first time I arrived in Armenia?
No, I'm talking about since you're living here for, definitely.
Yeah, it was around that time.
Great. So just explain us why you have decided to come to Armenia. I mean, not to come to Armenia, because a lot of Armenians from abroad, from diaspora, are coming to Armenia. They are maybe sometimes staying for 6 months, 1 year, and then they leave. But why you have decided since the beginning to come to Armenia and to live here, to be part of Armenia, not keep living in Armenia, in the US, sorry.
To be brutally honest, it was always about war and survival and defense of Armenia. I grew up all my life like that, as you run around as a young kid playing soldier with your friends or by yourself in the yard if you're strange like that. But it started from that's the main root of it. But in general, I always wanted to come and explore and go in every place, which I did the first time I came. Everyone told me that the first time you enter Armenia, you're going to feel different and think different. I, for the most part, believed them. But then when I actually came and experienced it, even though with no experience at all of the life here, as I do now, newly gained, it really did change. So it was to explore in short, but also find a way how I can give myself or sacrifice my life to help Armenia.
Because as you can imagine, a lot of our guests, but globally, a lot of Armenians will be surprised if you explain them that you left the US to come to Armenia, because some people, I wouldn't say the majority, but it's a fact, majority of people here are maybe even dreaming to leave Armenia and to go to other countries, mostly Western countries, or those people who don't have really the choice, maybe to Russia. Quite surprising for them to see you here in Armenia. But anyway, you are also a citizen of Armenia today.
As of last year, in last May, I gained my citizenship finally after in total of going to how many offices compiled together. It's maybe 1 year it took me to get my citizenship.
Yeah, honestly, I was wondering to talk about other topics, but just a quick question. How was your experience of getting your Armenian citizenship? How it was? Because I was used to live in France for almost 20 years. So we have a kind of almost similar experience, but yours was a little bit maybe worse, I would say. How it was, how long it took? Just give a feedback, a quick one, please.
From the first time I came to Armenia, I was currently still in the military there at that time. I just had a free schedule, which was a problem, but I didn't understand or realize the process fully until I came and asked someone, law office in short. One, because I am diaspora and I was not born here, as you are, if I'm not mistaken. It's entirely different because you have to prove that you're Armenian, which is your baptism certificate. You have to have birth certificate, and for me, because special documents that I needed, because I was military, is I have to have proof that I was in the military and was out of the military. In short, based off of how Armenian offices work, one office will say one thing and you will finish there. The next one will tell you to go on another adventure elsewhere. It was a matter of getting the right documents, certified copies, the proper stamps, and the dates correct, submitting them correctly, going to the right offices, and things like that, and then the military process, because the reason for the special military papers is if you have served outside of Armenia for 2 years in a foreign military, minimum of 2 years, you're not obligated to serve in Armenia by law, which made it, I would say, easier for me in some ways to get Armenian citizenship, because it's a big turnoff for, I think, majority of males that would like to live in Armenia, but they don't. Because of the military service, which is another topic which I would like to get into if we have time.
For sure, we'll do it, but I'm already forecasting a future interview in which one we'll talk about this more military aspect, about the new gun law in Armenia, because they made some changes concerning the procedure of getting a weapon here. But I would like to talk about it during our next interview, if you're okay with that.
That's okay. That's okay.
But anyway,
Maybe
you
I can-
did it.
that's
You
okay.
get your citizenship here. You're fully Armenian. That means you have rights and duties.
Mhm.
Uh,
By the
and
time I got my citizenship, most of the people at the offices at Over knew who I was and were happy to see me go finally.
even these nice people were fed up of you. You know, you're very kind.
They weren't
Great.
fed up, but they were happy. They recognized me. They were happy.
Yeah, but I mean, so to summarize this part of our talk, you know, that
Mhm.
was not easy, but you did it. Even if you don't have direct family members here, you have a lot of friends, and I am glad to be one of them. But you did it by your own force, by yourself, and
No,
also,
not by myself. No, 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 no.
sorry,
I forgot to mention is that I don't speak fluent Armenian yet.
that's what I was about to
Yes.
tell to people. Yeah, you're in
So it
you
was.
you were. I mean, now your Armenian is much more better than before, naturally. But initially at home, you were used to talk a little bit of Western Armenian, and here you you were confronted to learn from ground zero the Eastern Armenian, right?
It was more so ground zero to begin with. The amount of words I knew or know in Western Armenian, from what I guess what little my father taught me, I kind of just started from zero. From the first time I came to Armenia, I just gave myself a crash course and tried asking questions very awkwardly in the wrong grammar or too formally to certain taxi drivers. And then when you tell them that you're from the US and that you want to stay, they call you crazy and explain that it's their dream to go to the US to stay forever. But no, it wasn't easy. It was easier in some aspects, but very hard in others. It was a
And
mix.
as you talked about your family, I mean, the fact that you were used to hear the Western Armenian at home, I had the chance to meet your father, I mean, very shortly, but he's Armenian. His Western Armenian was just very beautiful because he was not mixing foreign words, you know, English or Russian, Turkish, or whatever you want.
Yeah.
I was quite surprised, so great. Mika-jan, as I told you, during our next interview, I would like to talk about more the military or war situation in Armenia, but let's start this time talking about the global situation of Armenia. What do you think about our situation within the country, but also on the frontiers? Even if I wouldn't like to talk about the purely military aspect, you know, of it.
Because it's not purely military. It's basically every single sphere of life that not that you can think of, but that exists in this reality is some way, shape, or form has a problem. Economically, geopolitically, militarily, socially, culturally, and all of that has to do with pastime, even up to, I would say, in my opinion, millennia past. We are the way that we are today is because of past millennia, even. The overall situation has not really changed. We've always been in between empires. We've been not de facto states, but khanates, so to speak, under someone else's wing, you could say. Difference now is that we're not in a dying phase, I would say. We're not in a dwindling phase, but we're in a rebirth phase, potential rebirth, I would say. If you would like, I can start with military aspect, some of the certain problems there that I see, and that could be easily solved.
Yes, let's have an overview of it. I wouldn't like to go too deep in this topic, but
No,
yeah,
no,
so
not
feel
in
free.
detail.
Just, I mean, our objective today is to be honest with you, why Khustup Media exists and why we have decided to start again our job, you know, to make interviews and this kind of stuff. It's simply because a lot of people, especially people from diaspora, friends, but not only, are asking us to put some new content and invite new people, as we are doing with you and other people. Why? Because we are used to see almost the same people for more than 30 years. And as you said correctly, the current situation of Armenia is the reason of, I mean, is explained by the failure of our last 30 years, 100 year, even our last 700 years. Yes.
The most recent.
So yeah, just feel free to talk about the situation here in Armenia. Let's raise up problems and also let's try to talk about some possible solutions. How you imagine the solutions?
Yeah. So, in my eyes, the current situation in Armenia is most recent problem was the past 30 years. We were under Soviet Union. We're not independent state, even though we had some cultural freedoms, economical freedoms, but no military freedoms. For example, right now, we're struggling to update our military entirely. That has to do with Soviet Union because, of course, we didn't have a military. And then after that time frame, it has to do with previous leaders that either could not or didn't let military development. When it comes to cultural and economical, I would argue that that's a bigger problem. What is the problem? The problem of retaining Armenian statehood in the heart and mind firstly, though. Each and every problem in Armenia is individually, and then it morphs, it all cultivates into a nation. Whether people accept that or not, everyone is interconnected. You know, during Soviet times, you weren't allowed to do certain things, to uphold certain things. You're only allowed to learn certain things, so on and so forth. And, you know, 30 years isn't that long of a time. We're now newly developing into a free statehood. A solution that could fix this is to, as you said, let viewers, especially Armenians in diaspora, see that it is possible to come here and develop. Hopefully in the next interview I can explain how I have developed, maybe rather harshly and roughly, but there is solutions here to fix, to be a good example, to show other Armenians here that there is a different way of thinking. You can think freely. You don't have to accept what is here, the system and things like that. Militarily, I see a lot of good, but it needs
But
work.
are you agree with me if I tell to people, if I tell you that Armenia's problem is purely systemic? That means that directly means that we don't have the right government within the right system, because I mean we never had a ruling political party who established this system, you know, rule the country correctly, and we never had this system to force these people to rule the country correctly.
To explain the military system, the reason why it is and what it is right now is it is an old system. It's a Soviet system. Soviet system at the time worked, but as we all know, Soviet Union slowly became corrupted internally and fell. That system in all post-Soviet countries exists. Within Soviet Union, you weren't allowed to discover and learn different tactics or doctrines, as example, systems. Only up until recently, we are now inviting NATO into the military. Will it work? Maybe it's again different discussion or deeper discussion in the next interview. But it does depend on the individuals. The system exists because certain individuals exist. It doesn't have to be because of the government. but in our current circumstances it is, because now, as of recently, the government intertwined themselves with the military. It used to be separate, which was technically a good thing in Soviet times. The system that is supposed to be, just like in the US, for example, is you have your federal government with its own agencies and systems, not systems, but
hierarchy.
sort of things, sections, homeland security and those sort of things. And then you have the military, who has its own head general of the things. Now in Armenia, it's intertwined, which is just as bad as intertwining it, I would say, with having military intertwined with church and government and things. Again, the problems for Armenians haven't really changed. Someone is always trying to mix something that's not supposed to go together. The system can change over time. It is changing. For example, we learned in the Artsakh War how not to combat the enemy. At the very first, we all know that the mass casualties that happened was due to bad doctrine or tactics, which
commandment also,
or commandment, yes, or lack of commandment, which again is a Soviet thing. The officers in Soviet Union don't lead from the front; they lead from behind. Once the guy receiving the order from behind is dead, there's no more command. It doesn't matter if you have one commander for 100 men. Once that one commander for the battlefield is gone, there's no wisdom being passed on.
And our soldiers were not allowed to take decisions by themselves. That's also a big problem, because they are confronting the enemy directly, but they cannot take any decisions because they are fearing some consequences. It's very stupid, of course.
Which again is another Soviet, very old system. We can say it like that it is just all Soviets' problem, this or that. But to say is that I'm not completely against all things Soviet.
Naturally.
System, yes, of course. To say a disclaimer, yes, I am from the US. Yes, I was in US military. But I can say personally, very openly, that I have an open mind towards other ideologies and systems and way of thinking, even learning from our enemies, either Turkish military or Azeri military. In order to fix this system in Armenia is to be very open-minded, not in the form of compromising belief and culture, economy, and your own existence, but to learn. The sole reason to learn and take what is good, what little good you can get from certain places, develop it to conform to your own nation, and then act upon it.
Exactly, because people will get used to see on our channel, hopefully, and they will understand very quickly that you are not here to defend one model and to confront the different models within them, but just to take the best within them to apply here in Armenia, by adopting them to the Armenian mentality, also our resources, because the Armenian army cannot become in the short run a kind of NATO standard based army.
No, it is not. It's not possible.
Yeah, and when we are criticizing, let's precise it also, because it's very important. When we are criticizing, for example, what we are calling the Soviet Union model that can be applied in politics, but also in military and another, in different fields.
When
that's not
Soviet,
only about
I'm referring to, when I say Soviet, sorry, when I'm referring to Soviet or something as this or bad, it's more so because it's old and it just doesn't work in this modern age anymore.
Exactly, and also that's not only the case that's not only true for Armenia. That's the same thing in all former Soviet Union countries, in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. The same
Even
for Russia. Even this war between Russia and Ukraine, we observed the same problems on a larger scale.
Even within the US, the military doctrine has changed the whole even construction of, let's use the Marine Corps as example. The United States Marine Corps used to be much more bigger than what it is now. Now it is very small and condensed to the point where they don't use heavy tanks anymore. It will be all strictly lightweight. The reason being is because of potential next war with China being sea-based, more so going ashore onto beaches and so on and so forth.
Globally, a more mobile tactics and strategy of making war.
Which I think a lot of Armenians also learned during the Artsakh War is that being in a large force, even being in a very large trench, even though it's very well fortified, very well developed, it doesn't work when it comes to certain aerial defenses. You can defend from the ground, sure, but if you cannot defend from the air, then it's useless. So the smaller the force, naturally, all throughout history, the smaller the force, the more mobility you have, and the more irritable, so to speak, you will be to the enemy, because you cannot waste even a $5,000 drone on just 2 men, technically, in logically speaking. But of course, war is not the most logical thing. Always, some things are mistakes or done out of harsh desire.
Exactly. And also we will talk about other topics such as the training of our soldiers, but also the trainings of our civilians, because any civilian should be able to protect himself as a minimum. Also, we will talk about we will present our system of Armenia. You know, for example, we precise that all guys are serving in the army for 2 years, which is a compulsory service, you know. But we'll talk about all this stuff during our next interview. Look, you talked about the fact that our soldiers, for example, during the war, this last war, because even talking about the first, second, or the third war is not correct. And that's also your position, I'm pretty sure, because we talked about it out of this thing. The war is almost eternal, you know, because the enemy is called Azerbaijan. It's more, yes, but Azerbaijan is a part of this pan-Turkish great project, you know. And today, sadly or not, I mean, but it's just a fact, you know, Turks are the natural allies of Russia today. And that's maybe my next question. I would like to talk with you, Mikajan, about the relationship between Russia and Armenia, especially from a military perspective. I wouldn't like to go deep today in this topic, but globally, what do you think about this relation? Because we clearly observed that during this last, the 44 days active period of war, Russians at least didn't help Armenia, or sometimes they even helped Azerbaijanis to do their job. Also, after giving your position about this thing, let's talk about Armenia's foreign policy. What do you think? Because some Armenians are 100% pursue that Armenia should join the Western world, even if some of them cannot explain us what does it mean. And some other people are like, let's keep Russia. They are not nice people. It's not a good, not nice people. We are not talking about people, but the country and the rulers of Russia. They are not very kind with us. They almost never helped us, but let's keep them because at least we know them. What do you think about these different approaches?
So it's very mixed, and it's mixed on purpose, as in it's very not confused. I think if people clearly study history and understand how nations work in their own interests, that it won't be very confusing, but it's very dynamic. Again, it's not just militarily, it's economically and so on and so things. Not referring to Armenia's problems, but just referring to all these forces against us, and then other forces, us against them. To say I am not completely against being an ally with Russia, being not an ally with Russia would be very bad right now. But being fully pro-Russian or fully pro-West is not feasible. One, because we are Armenian and Armenia is first. It should never be a question of relying on someone completely. For example, Armenians, I think, tend to forget that during the Mamikonian time era, and even before, is that Armenia was in between the Roman Empire and Persian Empire. How many times we technically allied with the Romans and then switched to the Persians, and then vice versa, back and forth. That was wise. One, for survival. Two, or I guess you can say it's still one, survival militarily. Because imagine all the military experience training that was interchanged between Roman legions and Persian cavalries and things of that sort. Going back to Russia, for example, why leaving Russia would be very bad completely as an ally, or just as an acquaintance nation, neighbor nation, is because 98% of our food grains comes from Russia. Not Armenia, not the West, not anyone. So we do rely on Russia. That is the reality of it. Does food have anything to do with war? No, not technically. But now, what makes Russia bad for Armenia is militarily, defense industry. Can Russia offer us any form of good system? No, not exactly, because they were the inventors of the Soviet system, which, as anyone in the West can note, is that they still typically follow Soviet doctrine of tactics and things, even individual tactics, which to me make no sense and are very dangerous. NATO is the better option in terms of military doctrine, system, and everything. In fact, the Russian and the CSTO organization entirely is just the same thing as NATO, just with post-Soviet bloc nations. But again, the system doesn't work, as we saw with Armenia. No assistance was given, even though our recognized borders were attacked. So NATO is definitely the better option in terms of training, which I know that we received in the recent joint Armenian military and American military, Operation Eagle. I forget the exact name of it. And there was a big misconception of what they taught during the training. One, no regular civilian on Instagram or Facebook is going to be allowed to know. Two, based off my military experience and observation, it wasn't just riot control for police, as they say. You mentioned two questions referring to Russia and NATO. What was the second one exactly? How?
Yeah, before just remembering you, my second question, even I'm not sure about the percentage of the importations of food or this kind of thing from Russia, but you're right. We are mostly today we are mostly dependent on Russia. Just to give my own personal opinion about it, right? We are dependent on Russia, and that's also why Russia is keeping defending our enemies, which is very strange to say in this way, but that's not Russia's fault. It's our fault, right?
It's held above our head too much, which is what makes Russia a bad neighbor.
Exactly. That's why we always need a good government. We are not defending the previous governments or the I mean today's one. We both of us, and also the objective of Khustup is also to create this platform on which we will meet each other, on which we'll know each other, and maybe also to create the future government. I would say it very openly, because we tried almost all the existing political parties here in Armenia, and nothing good raised up.
They're all basically the same.
Exactly. But concerning Russia, it's not Russia's fault. It's because of us, because we are tolerating Russia's policy towards us, and we are not also trying to work to deal with other countries, because most of the Armenians living, especially in Armenia, but not only. It's very strange that, for example, a lot of Armenians living in Western countries are defending mostly or globally this, let's say, this pro-Russian approach, which is not good, because if you're okay with that, then came to Armenia and try to live within this system. Otherwise, I'm not telling that Armenians from abroad cannot talk about Armenia or think about it. Naturally, I did it before, and I'm fully okay with that. But it's very easy to talk from France or US or even Russia. But it's more difficult to come here and to do something. Yeah. But Armenia and Armenians should do their best to export or sell products in other countries, especially that now for almost more than 1 month or 2, we are allowed to export some food products to the European Union, which is very interesting, because it's also a way to become less dependent on Russia from an economic perspective, you know, because people can make products here, transform them here in Armenia, and export and sell them in the European market for a higher price to get better profit. That means a larger budget for the country, and also automatically, as you're from the military field more than me, at least, we can also afford better weapons and other kind of stuff that our army needs. My second question, just to talk about, and we'll focus on this one. Today, right now, knowing that a new active phase of war can happen very soon, because we already forecasted this, this situation that on spring Azerbaijan can start again what it's doing for more than 30 years now. What do you think? What should we do in order to reduce the risks of war, if possible? And if it's not possible, what should we do to protect our frontiers and our country?
Well,
I fully understand it's not easy to respond to this kind of question in 10, 20 minutes, but let's try to talk about it.
We can touch upon it. I guess I should break it down in this example, is that within Armenian society, always, which I think, in my opinion, has never changed, is that we have certain society of noblemen, political type men, intellectuals, and then that certain class of people. Then we have military class of people, and then we have just regular people. For regular people, I would say is be calm, don't go on social media, and the moment something very bad happens, that you just have to make a post about it and this or that. But any other day when there's not something bad, you're just living normal life. For example, everyone says donate here, donate there when we're being attacked, but nobody's donating beforehand. Prepare ahead is what I would say to everyone, which a lot are. I won't get into detail of who are they and how many and that sort of thing. But there's a misconception in the diaspora that Armenia doesn't have actual military, or even some dare to say that we don't have a military at the border defending, which is entirely untrue. If I want to go to Vartanis right now, I will be stopped by police or military asking me what I am doing here, maybe arrested because they think I am a spy or something, which has almost happened, which can be a later story, a funny story. As far as the average civilian that associates himself with this military class, with this military culture, which I'm very happy to say is awakening and growing. For example, we have Azatazen shooting range, an organization that is heavily grown in Armenia. It started as just a shooting range, and now it has grown into a very influential community center. You can look them up online, azatazen.am. You can purchase a weapon, not to get into details of the new law for firearms, but under, I will say, for this current government, there is a lot of very bad things. No arguments there, but there's also very lot of good things that have happened. Our military and civilian population has prepared militarily very much a lot. Should it have prepared 30 years ago, as people say? Sure, but many of us in diaspora that are born in diaspora, we're not even born yet to discuss this issue. Again, for the civilian that associates himself with the military class, you can buy a weapon, an actual weapon for combat. You do have an ability to use it, given the circumstance of conflict at the border. For example, many did in September, October era of 2022. Of course, you have to be Armenian citizen to legally do it. I would say don't panic, prepare ahead of time, and prepare the right goods or funding, and get to know the Armenian community here. Don't be separate from Armenia. There is a bad concept of diaspora Armenians and Armenians born here are very different. Yes, it's true, but ultimately all are Armenian, and all do, for the most part, 90% have the same ideas and mindsets and problems and other attributes. There has to be a sort of unification and forgetting of these ideologies, which will further help the preparation for war and economic development and things like that. There has to be a letting go of egos.
Personally, you know, I am deeply convinced that we, in fact, have maybe only one solution to solve our statehood, or also our nation's problem solution to solve all this problem. Sorry, it's to organize the resettling, you know, of Armenians from diaspora. That's very necessary. Why? Because look, you maybe 3 times or even 4 times said during this interview that we have a, I mean, you said it indirectly, we have a problem of mentality. People, even those people are rejecting, for example, Soviet Union model, are keeping doing the same thing as before because they never saw something new, and they also never they never tried to get around the table, and to discuss about potential solutions for our country. What do you think? What we can do to organize? Because we are talking about the resettling of these people from US, France, Russia, Lebanon, and so on. But it's not easy because people are not. I mean, some people don't even talk Armenian, but that's not the problem, because you proved by yourself that you can do it, and you can even become not simply a fully integrated citizen of Armenia. It's not, that's not because you're my friend and that I'm telling this truth. You are even a kind of example for the Armenian citizens, because you are doing your best. You are working on yourself to become more and more necessary person here in Armenia. What can we do? Which kind of advice can we give to our brothers and sisters living abroad to maybe at first try to organize, to create some structures in their own towns, cities, and countries, and little by little try to help some people within these structures to come to Armenia and to do something here? What do you think?
Well, I'm on your channel of Khustup, and I'm trying my best to explain. My apologies ahead of time if I don't explain something properly. Should have said that before. It is very possible. Don't think that because it's Armenia, even if you were born here, don't think that it's impossible to live here, that everyone's out to cheat you or steal from you, whether it's police, doctors, taxi driver, market, or anything. Yes, that exists, and it comes again from troubled times in Soviet Union under collapse, when there was no food and things like that. So, it comes from 30 years of no development, thinking freely, and that will last for generations. Perhaps this next generation will be different because, of course, our mother, fathers, and grandparents' generation grew up in Soviet Union times, and they were forced to live a certain way. And over time, physically, mentally, for a fact, scientifically, over time, you will develop those habits and mindsets and things, and you will pass it on to your children. Your children, or their children, our parents, since the Soviet Union fell, then had the choice to be free, either keep this system or choose a different system. Okay, we chose a republic, a type of republic that is now, again, I say, developing in its very infant stages. And we are still deciding which way to go, which way is better, who is the better allies, and that sort of thing. The thing I can say for the Armenian that is listening, that has ever thought about coming to Armenia, yes, it's possible. Is it hard? Yes, it is very hard, I have to say. The stress of life that has taken hold on me these past 2 years has been more in the US, I can say. Is it worth it? Yes. That comes down to the individual choice, as I did years ago, and came to realization at a young age that, yes, I am Armenian, and to be brutally honest, there is no point of being Armenian outside of Armenia. We are not in a very large systematic genocide right now. And again, a different topic or concept people think is that during conflict and things, people scream genocide, genocide. But it doesn't mean nothing when you take away the meaning of it. We're not in a actually systematic genocide where we're all dying. Our homeland is not in that type of danger as of yet. If Armenians neglect to come back and they keep on living and the population falls and falls and falls, then yes, we will be in that sort of crisis again.
Mm.
I think going back to what we talked about earlier is the concepts and mindsets again between Armenians, is that they need to come to realization that all are Armenian, and to be brutally honest, all are worth saving and helping. There is not a difference between Armenians from Western Armenia to Eastern Armenia. There is certain different mindsets, sure, but all are Armenian. All have to come under the unification of, doesn't matter what the government is, the cultural society is, these sort of things, all is possible. You will meet similar people and form a community, which, again, many of us have, I have, and just through one person, you will find a group of 10, 50, or 40. It is not all evil people here, or cheaters, liars, and things.
They've been a minority. The thing is that, as always, bad people, bad things are much more visible. You can take a glass of water, just put something unclean in it, and your eyes will keep observing this thing instead of seeing the whole glass of water, which is pure.
And it comes from Armenians' history. Imagine from the time of the genocide that your great-grandparents suffered, and all they saw was bad things. So all they wanted to see was good at the time. And then another Artsakh war happened. So they saw bad things and they expected bad things. And then corruption, government, and all these other things. Armenians, because of all these traumas, I like to call it, now only expect bad things and they see bad things. Which is, I think, personally, is that each person just walking down the street of Yerevan thinks the same thing. They have the same mindset and things. You will hear almost the same exact sentences from different random people. Why is that? It's because collectively all Armenians have suffered, which again is a bad thing, but is a unifying thing for Armenians, that all have suffered. The issue is the realization that yes, all have suffered, but all of us collectively can change it.
Yeah, we just have to take advantages from this, I would say, sad thing, historically bad thing. Unfortunately, our time is almost out, Mikajan. For sure, and if you're okay with that, we'll organize not regularly, but maybe once per month an interview. I will be pleased to invite with us some other people. We can also so 2 more people can join us because our Khustup media is allowing an interview with 4 people. I mean myself plus 3 people. So if you know some people from abroad who are not yet in Armenia but who are thinking about coming back to Armenia, I would be pleased to talk with them. Again, thank you so much for your presence here. I would ask you and ask our viewers, I mean people who watch our interview, to subscribe on our different social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, also YouTube, which is very necessary for us. More and more people are following us on Instagram. That means that what we are doing is maybe good and necessary for our nation, and we are doing our best to, as they asked to us, I mean they requested, is to invite new people with new approaches, new vision for our country, and also for our worldwide spread nation. Thank you again, Mikajan.
No problem. Thank you, Sako. Pleasure.
Thank you. Goodbye.